In May of 2026, the Watchtower Society did something it spent 146 years calling spiritually dangerous. It opened a TikTok account. The handle is JW Pressroom. On Instagram, it crossed 611,000 followers within weeks. On TikTok, over 100,000. Both accounts launched simultaneously. Both were announced from the platform by elders to congregations across the United States. 8 men in Warwick, New York voted to enter the platform their own publications had warned members to avoid. That is not a marketing decision. That is a surrender. For decades, the governing body taught that worldly platforms were corrupting, that apostates live there, that the algorithm of social media pulled the faithful away from Jehovah. Now the algorithm belongs to them too, except it does not. Because TikTok is not a printing press. TikTok is a mathematical machine. And inside that machine, a governing body account does not get special treatment. It competes, video by video, against every ex-witness with a front-facing camera and a story to tell. The leadership just walked into the one arena where their century-old advantage does not work. This video is about the exact mechanism that broke the wall, about why the leadership had no choice but to follow, and about the sentence buried in their own playbook that explains why this move was not strategy. It was panic. That sentence is a death certificate for the mental isolation the organization built for 100 years. I will show it to you before the end. Part 1. The announcement. No one expected. The announcement reached congregations in late May of 2026. United States elders received it first. Within 24 hours, the news circulated globally through internal channels and public TikTok forums. 2 official accounts had been created under the name JW Pressroom, one on Instagram, one on TikTok. The bio is identical on both platforms. Quote, "Official Pressroom of Jehovah's Witnesses, featuring news, announcements, and information for government officials, journalists, and researchers." That description is the first detail worth examining. The leadership did not frame the accounts as a tool for the faithful. It framed them as a tool for outsiders, authorities, journalists, researchers. The contradiction is exact. Members are still instructed, in study publications from the past 2 years, to limit time on social media. The same platforms now host the organization's own institutional voice. The announcement followed a Watchtower study article that addressed social media directly. Brothers and sisters had been told, in some congregations to the point of extremes, that the faithful should stay off these platforms entirely. 1 week later, the Pressroom accounts went live. The internal contradiction was loud enough that JW-friendly forums lit up with debate within hours. There is no reconciliation. The leadership entered the platform because the leadership lost control of the narrative on the platform. Part 2. The contradiction file. To understand the size of the reversal, the older record has to be read out loud. In November of 1999, the Watchtower published guidance in the Kingdom Ministry instructing witnesses to be extremely cautious about internet use. The language was explicit. The internet was a place where apostate material circulated freely, where members could be exposed to dangerous ideas, where time was wasted that could be devoted to Jehovah. Years later, an official Questions from Readers article addressed the same theme with even sharper words. Quote, "Some people create websites and social media accounts that seem as if they are from the organization or from brothers of the governing body. But these are fake. No member of the governing body has a personal webpage or an account on any social media site." That sentence was published as doctrinal guidance. Members read it, studied it, underlined it. It was the official position. No social media accounts, not for the leadership, not for the brothers. In May of 2026, the position reversed. The organization itself opened the kind of account it had previously identified as a marker of fakeness. The 2013 Watchtower had gone further. A study article warned the faithful to be on guard against drifters. Paragraph 11 specified that any use of social media, electronic messaging, hobbies, or sports awareness could mark a member as a drifter spiritually. Social media was placed alongside speculation and false apostasy as a warning sign of weakness. In September of 2024, the Watchtower returned to the theme with the title, "Are You Heeding the Warnings?" The article continued the tradition of describing apostates as mentally diseased. The article quoted Paul on false teachers who, quote, "quietly bring in," end quote, "corruptive ideas, like smugglers, like clever forgers passing phony documents." That is the institutional voice on critical content. That voice did not change. The platform changed. The pattern is consistent across decades. Each new technology follows the same cycle inside the Watchtower Society. First, Condemnation. Members are warned, sometimes harshly, to stay away. Second, institutional adoption. The organization opens a controlled version. Third, continued prohibition for members while leadership operates openly on the same platform. The cycle was visible with the internet in 2001 when jw.org launched. Visible with YouTube in 2010 when the official channel opened. Visible now in 2026 with TikTok and Instagram. The members are told to be careful. The leadership goes live. The proof of the loss is in the numbers behind the launch. 611,000 followers on Instagram in weeks. Over 100,000 on TikTok. Those numbers did not come from spiritual hunger. They came from defensive curiosity. Members rushed to follow because the announcement made it official. But the algorithm does not care who follows. The algorithm cares who watches all the way to the end. And that distinction is the entire story of this video. The Jehovah's Witness information control model worked on 3 layers: physical, social, doctrinal. The physical layer was the Kingdom Hall, 2 meetings per week, regional assemblies, annual conventions, door-to-door preaching. Each member spent on average 10 hours weekly inside spaces controlled by the organization. Time is control. Attention is control. The social layer was disfellowshipping. Anyone who questioned would lose their family. Father stopped speaking to son. Son stopped speaking to mother. Marriages dissolve. The Australian Royal Commission documented in 2017 that among 68,000 active Jehovah's Witnesses in the country, there were over 1,800 alleged victims of child sexual abuse. None of these cases were reported to authorities by the organization. The stated reason: spiritual matters are handled internally. The doctrinal layer was the category of apostate. Any critical publication was apostate. Any former member who spoke publicly was apostate. Any text outside jw.org was spiritually contaminated. Members learned to look away automatically. That system survived radio. It survived television. It survived YouTube, because YouTube works by search and subscription. You have to look for the content. You have to choose to click. A young witness could spend an entire life on YouTube without seeing a single ex-member video, as long as they never typed the wrong word. TikTok destroyed that equation. By 2026, it is the second largest video platform in the world. But size is not the threat. Design is. Traditional platforms run on a social graph. You follow someone, you see their content. Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, all built on that logic. TikTok inverted it. TikTok runs on an interest graph. You do not need to follow anyone, you only need to stop scrolling. The economist who first named this system was Tristan Harris, former design ethicist at Google. Harris co-founded the Center for Humane Technology. His central thesis is that platforms like TikTok do not compete for content quality. They compete for what he calls a race to the bottom of the brainstem. Algorithms are tuned to outrage, to emotion, to the parts of the brain that react before the parts that think. Whatever produces that reaction wins distribution. Whatever does not, dies. Harris coined another term: human downgrading. The systematic erosion of attention, focus, and critical reasoning at civilizational scale, caused by engagement-optimized platforms. The Center for Humane Technology has documented that algorithmic feeds favor extreme, conspiratorial, and emotionally charged content because that content holds eyeballs longer. YouTube's recommendation system alone determines roughly 70% of daily watch time for billions of users. The Watchtower's institutional content cannot win that race. It was never designed to. Watchtower publications are slow. They are careful. They are doctrinally policed. Every sentence is reviewed. Every claim is filtered. That style produced loyal readers for 146 years. It does not produce retention on TikTok. TikTok's technical documentation confirms 3 facts that matter here. First, follower count is not a direct ranking signal. An account created today with 0 followers can reach 1 million people tomorrow if the video holds retention. That means the JW Pressroom account, despite its 600,000 Instagram followers, has no structural advantage on TikTok over an ex-witness in Sao Paulo or Atlanta posting from a phone. Both start at 0 on every new upload. Whoever holds attention longer wins the next push. Second, watch time and retention are the strongest signals. If you watch 30 seconds of a 15-second video, the algorithm concludes the topic interests you. If you re-watched, the signal doubles. If you stop to read the caption, it triples. The algorithm does not ask why. It does not separate curiosity from agreement. It only registers attention. Third, in 2026, TikTok functions as a search engine for Generation Z. Platform research shows users between 16 and 24 prefer TikTok over Google for practical questions. That means when a witness teenager types a doubt about blood transfusions, or the two-witness rule in abuse cases, or the 1914 doctrine, she is no longer going to jw.org. She is going to a platform where ex-members and critics now sit on the same shelf as the JW Pressroom. The Watchtower spent over a century making sure that shelf did not exist. They just put themselves on it. Part 5. The Psychology of the Micro-Awakening. There is a technical term in cognitive psychology called low-threshold dissonance. It is the moment when new information enters the brain before the doctrinal filter can engage. 500-page books trigger the filter. The member sees the cover, reads the title, feels the weight of the publication, and the brain categorizes it. This is dangerous. The filter closes before the first page. 15-second videos do not trigger the filter. There is no cover, no title, no institutional author. There is a face, a sentence, a cut. The content enters before the mental censorship decides what to do with it. The Watchtower focuses on content. TikTok focuses on context. The organization tries to ban what the member sees. The algorithm decides how the member sees. It is impossible to fight an architecture of choice that is invisible. The clearest case study of this effect is the viral career of Stephen Lett. Lett is a member of the governing body. Inside the Kingdom Hall, he is presented as one of 8 men who speak for Jehovah on earth. His broadcasts on JW Broadcasting are watched with reverence. His statements are quoted in study articles. The institutional framing is total. On TikTok, that framing collapses. Clips of Lett's facial expressions have become viral content over the past 3 years. His statement at the beginning of the COVID-19 pandemic, in which he described the present as the final part of the last days, was decontextualized and circulated as a meme. In March of 2026, another Lett clip from JW Broadcasting went viral under the title, "Stephen Lett's Big Mistake." The framing on TikTok strips the institutional context. There is no broadcasting set, no spiritual authority, just an older man in a suit making unusual facial movements and saying sentences that sound strange when removed from doctrinal scaffolding. This is the deeper damage the algorithm causes. It separates human behavior from religious authority. Inside the Kingdom Hall, the member sees the governing body. On TikTok, the same member sees an elderly man saying odd things. The two perceptions cannot coexist for long. The first depends on the framing. The second is what the eyes actually register without the framing. The same effect has applied to David Splain's broadcasts on doctrinal shifts, to Jeffrey Jackson's testimony at the Australian Royal Commission, to Anthony Morris III's appearances before his removal from the governing body. Each one circulates in fragments. Each fragment is shorter than 3 minutes. Each fragment strips the religious frame. A 2021 study on religious disaffiliation, conducted with 236 former Jehovah's Witnesses from Brazil and Portugal, identified the 3 main reasons for leaving. 26.8% cited loss of faith in the doctrine, 14.9% disagreement with the leadership. The rest splits between shunning, psychological abuse, and rules considered unbearable. What that study could not measure, because it was conducted before TikTok's peak, is the specific trigger. Reports gathered in international forums during 2025 and 2026 show a repeating pattern. The first crack almost always came from a short video. If Raymond Franz had a TikTok account in 1980, the organization would have collapsed in months, not decades. What Franz needed 600 pages to explain in Crisis of Conscience, the algorithm now compresses into a 30-second cut with the right caption. The book sat on a shelf. The clip travels by itself. The Pew Research Center reports that the Jehovah's Witness retention rate in the United States is among the lowest of any major American religious denomination. Only 37% of those raised in the religion still identify as members in adulthood. 66% leave. These numbers are pre-TikTok. No one has yet measured the platform's effect on these statistics. But if the trend scales with Gen Z consumption of the platform, the next measurement could be brutal. That is the sentence I promised in the intro. The death certificate. The Watchtower's information system was designed for a world where attention was scarce and centralized. The platform that now controls the attention of the next generation is one the leadership does not own, does not understand, and cannot silence. Part 6. The borders that stopped existing. There is a second effect of the algorithm that the Watchtower has not addressed publicly. It may be the most dangerous of all. For decades, the organization managed information by region. The publications were translated into hundreds of languages, but they were not synchronized in cultural framing. A scandal in one country could be contained in that country. A controversy in Australia did not necessarily reach Brazil. A leaked judicial committee in Spain might never touch the Korean congregation. TikTok dissolved that geography. The platform's translation tools are built into the app. Automatic captioning crosses languages in real time. A clip from a Brazilian ex-witness can be discovered, with subtitles, by a witness in Seoul, Lagos, or Berlin within a single scroll session. The cultural barrier that protected institutional narratives stopped existing. The result is comparative. Ex-witnesses around the world are realizing, for the first time at scale, that the abuses they experienced were not local, they were structural. A former member in São Paulo describes a judicial committee in 2017. A former member in Mexico City describes the same scripted questions in 2019. A former member in Manchester describes the same lines in 2022. The same disfellowshipping language, the same instruction not to record, the same elders citing the same paragraphs from the same handbook. The realization that the system is global, identical, and centralized was supposed to come slowly, if at all. Members were supposed to remain isolated in their local experience. Apostate content was supposed to be foreign and distant. Now the foreign and distant content is captioned in the member's own language, served by the same algorithm that delivers cooking videos and dance trends, indistinguishable from any other clip in the feed. The Watchtower depended on isolation to survive criticism. The algorithm dissolved isolation as a category. It does not matter what language the member speaks. It does not matter what country the member lives in. The same patterns of testimony reach all of them simultaneously. Part 7. The living room. The most consequential effect of all is the hardest to document, because it happens in private. Picture a Jehovah's Witness household in any country. A typical Sunday afternoon. The Watchtower study has finished at the Kingdom Hall. The family is back home. Parents are reviewing the article. A teenager sits on the couch, phone in hand. The parents do not see the screen. The first video that appears is the JW Pressroom. The teenager recognizes it immediately. Trusted brand. Institutional voice. The algorithm logs the recognition as a positive signal. Watch time accumulates for a few seconds. The next video is delivered by the For You algorithm. It is not selected by the parents. It is not selected by the elders. It is not selected by the governing body. It is selected by an equation running on a server in California or Singapore, optimized only for retention. That second video might be an ex-witness with a 30-second story, a leaked phrase from a judicial committee, a side-by-side of an old publication and a new one. The teenager does not put the phone down. The algorithm has already registered the seconds spent on the JW Pressroom and treats them as topical interest. It serves more JW-related content. Some of it is institutional, some of it is critical. The For You page does not distinguish. That is the contradiction in physical form. Two opposing realities, scrolling in the same feed, in the same hand, in the same living room, while the official Sunday study continues a few feet away. This is not a hypothetical case. It is the structural condition of every witness household with a teenager. The leadership cannot legislate it away. The bishops cannot ban it from existence. The parents cannot supervise 60 seconds at a time across an entire generation. The architecture of choice is delivering both narratives to the same person in real time, while the institutional gathering still concludes with prayer. The Kingdom Hall lasted 2 hours. The phone lasts the rest of the day. Part 8. The problem with entering the stadium. Once you understand the math, the JW Pressroom move stops looking like outreach. It looks like containment. The official accounts launched with a stated audience: government officials, journalists, researchers, not the faithful. The organization knows it cannot stop its own members from being on the platform, so it tries to control what authorities and reporters see when they look up the religion. The Pressroom is a search result strategy, a way to make sure that when a journalist types Jehovah's Witnesses into TikTok, an official voice appears in the first row. But TikTok does not work like Google. There is no first row. There is only the algorithm pushing whatever holds retention. And the moment the Pressroom posts a polished institutional clip, an ex-witness anywhere in the world can post a 30-second response with personal testimony. And the algorithm will weigh both videos by the same single metric: who kept viewers watching longer. The structural advantage belongs to the critics. It always has on this platform. There is also a second problem: and it is already visible. Within days of the official launch, fake JW Pressroom accounts began appearing. Accounts with extra underscores in the handle. Accounts with the underscore replaced by a period. Accounts adding the word official to look more authentic. Accounts posting in other languages, presenting themselves as regional translations of the original. Some of these fake accounts post apostate content under the institutional brand. The organization had to publish a guide titled How to Identify the Official JW Pressroom Accounts to help members tell the real account from impersonators. That guide is the most revealing artifact of the whole launch, because in one document, the Watchtower is admitting two things at once. First, that they had to enter TikTok. Second, that they have already lost control of their own name on it. The irony is sharp. Decades ago, an internal article warned members about fake accounts pretending to be the governing body. The warning was used to justify staying off the platform entirely. Today, the same problem exists, except the legitimate account is the one being copied. The threat the leadership predicted has materialized. They are now living inside it. For the first time in over a century, the organization has lost structural authority over the channel that matters. The Watchtower has changed direction 3 times in 18 months. In August of 2025, governing body member David Splain announced that higher education would now be treated as a personal choice. Decades of contrary guidance reversed in a single short broadcast. In May of 2024, the vocabulary of disfellowshipping was softened. In May of 2026, the organization opened official accounts on the platforms it had previously linked to negative spiritual influence in its own study publications. These are not strategic initiatives, these are reactions. They are attempts to recover control of a narrative being written outside the walls of the organization. Inside the algorithm of an app that belongs to no one in the leadership, that answers to no doctrine, and that cannot be silenced by the vote of 8 men in Warwick, New York. The Jehovah's Witness control model was built for a world where exposure time was the scarce resource. The Kingdom Hall consumed time, the publications consumed time, the preaching work consumed time. Whoever controlled time controlled the mind. TikTok inverted the scarce resource. Now the scarce resource is attention, and attention is distributed by an equation no one in the leadership knows how to read. The Pew Research numbers show the religion was already losing 2/3 of its born-in members before the platform existed. The next generation will grow up with the algorithm in their pocket from childhood. The organization still calls former members apostates, but the word has lost its grip. To Generation Z, apostate is no longer a spiritual threat. It is a content creator. And the content creator, on TikTok in 2026, holds more authority than any member of the governing body. The JW Pressroom account is the proof, not because it failed. It has hundreds of thousands of followers. But because the leadership felt it had to exist, they did not enter TikTok to evangelize. They entered to defend. The algorithm is not God, but it decides, every day, who gets the microphone. And for the first time in 146 years, the Watchtower has to ask permission to speak.